Now, our first speaker is Makana, clearly a woman of many talents and experiences. I first saw her talking on TV about well-being and stress control. Then I read her book, Fit in a Bit, which is now entitled Mindful Multitasking. And that book was a prize in last week's class. And the book gave me a lot of interesting actions and ideas about what I could do, particularly in traffic. Gripping the steering wheel and letting go, let go. Plus, I know that Makana loves to laugh. So I'm delighted Makana is here with us today to share her expertise on how we can be happy and healthy, a great combination. Please welcome Makana.
Aloha, everybody. Today, I'd like to answer 3 questions you probably have in mind. Number 1, what is mindful multitasking? Number 2, how can you use it so that you live a healthier, happier life? And number 3, you might be wondering, how did someone like me get a name that's Hawaiian Chinese? So turn to page 2 in your materials. Mindful multitasking is doing exercises while you're doing something else you already do. So it doesn't take any extra time. This is not the old idea of parking further away from the store, which is great, but it takes more time. These literally take no extra time. And I'm not just talking about physical exercises, because we all know to live a healthy, happy life, we need to exercise our minds as well, right? We need to engage emotionally with others in relationship. And the medical research shows that the people that live the healthiest, happiest lives have some kind of regular connection to something bigger than themselves, whether they call that God, nature, or oneness. So I'm going to share exercises for the body, mind, heart, and spirit. Look at page 3, and there you will see activities that you probably do every day or every week. Lying in bed, watching television, sitting at the computer, driving. So, for example, while you're waiting for the microwave or the toaster, you can do squats. How many of you, raise your hand if you remember the TV exercise pioneer, Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne said, as we get older, the most important exercise we can do is squats. Because as long as you can do squats, you can get on the toilet. And as long as you can get on the toilet, you're not disabled. Another physical exercise you can do anytime, anywhere, right now, is tighten your abs and your kegels, the muscles of your pelvic floor. Tight abs prevent low back pain. It decreases incontinence, and tight abs are good for your sex life, if you have one. An example of a mental exercise, part of mental exercising is relaxing our minds and not worrying. So a mental exercise is to repeat positive affirmations. For example, repeat after me, I am happy. Really? Let's try that with enthusiasm. I am happy. So if you wake up every morning and say that, your spouse might look at you funny, but the research shows that the happiest people are the ones who choose to be happy. So we have to make that choice every day, every moment. An example of an emotional exercise to deepen our connections with others when you take a shower. Now, you don't have to take a shower with them for this to work, but when you take a shower and you're cleansing your body, you can cleanse your relationships by forgiving. And you can forgive people that you haven't talked to in years, or you can forgive people that you live with who are extremely annoying. And then there are spiritual exercises. Whenever you're outside for just a moment, just going from the house to the car, or whenever you're in the car, look up. Experience awe. A-W-E. Experience awe. Savor the color of the sky, the shape of the clouds, the play of the light, the color of the vegetation, the rainbows. The research shows that when we have that awe experience, it engages the same part of the brain that's engaged when we meditate or when we have transcendent prayer. So those are just some quick examples of mindful multitasking, and we'll come back to some other techniques. But how do you know that these are going to work for you? Everything I share with you is supported by years of medical research. But I was doing this presentation recently, and a gentleman said, yes, but what are your metrics? How can I know that I'm making progress? Well, with physical exercise, you can measure your progress. If you start off doing one push-up while you're watching TV, and you work yourself up to 10 or 20 or 30, that's progress. If you listen to less news and more music, that's progress. And then we can get feedback from other people. My husband said not long ago, you know, you're not as grumpy as you used to be. I'm like, lucky for you. Or I ran into a friend who I hadn't seen in about a year, and she said, oh my gosh, you look healthier, happier, and younger. That's progress. And then even strangers can give us positive feedback. After I had been doing this for about a year, 3 men tried to pick me up. Now, they were all in their 80s. But I'm 64. I never thought at this age I'd be a hot young thing. So then people ask, well, is mindful multitasking as good as doing 30 minutes of exercise 6 times a week, which is optimal? Let me ask you, though, first, how many of you exercise, including walking, 6 times a week, at least 30 minutes a day? Raise your hand. Let's see. All right, awesome. Let's give them a hand. You are awesome. That's great. Now, how many of you have some kind of regular exercise program? It's not that, but you regularly exercise at least once a week. Raise your hand. Excellent. Let's give you folks a hand. So for those of you who already exercise, this can be cross-training. Now, 30 minutes can only be made up with 30 minutes. But you can use mindful multitasking as part of those 30 minutes. And there's actually some new research that shows that doing 3 10-minute spurts of exercise a day is just as good as 30 at once. So you could go for a 10-minute walk, then do 10 minutes of squats, lunges, and push-ups while you're waiting for the microwave. And then you could do housework and make your housework be an exercise. So for example, when you're vacuuming, a lot of us, when we vacuum, we just go like this, right? And all we're doing is using our arms. But I've invented the vacuum salsa. And what you do is you hold the vacuum here and you move your feet. Now you're getting exercise. Anyone here do hula? Ever do hula? So if you practice hula, now you're doing a half squat, so you're working your quads, and you can do a hula step while you're doing it. And now you've got doing exercise while you're doing your housework. So this is cross training. So for those of you who have an exercise program, but maybe you're not doing squats, maybe you're not stretching your hamstrings, which are really important as we get older. Another important exercise as we get older is balance, right? We all want to keep our balance. And the only way we can improve our balance is by balancing on one foot. So if you're in line at Starbucks, for example, you could go like this, and hopefully nobody laughs. Or you could go like this, or you could just take your foot off the floor a quarter inch and just balance on one foot. So it's cross-training. Now, for those of you who don't have a regular exercise program, this is a first step. And the research shows if you take a first step, chances are you'll take another one and another one. And then, of course, it's cross-training also because there's the mental, emotional, and spiritual exercises that you may not be doing in your regular exercise program, but which you can do while you're exercising. So you can multitask while you're exercising. So then the other question I get asked a lot is, how did someone like me, an attorney, end up doing this work? 20 years ago, I was working in Silicon Valley. I had my own consulting business. I was going all over the country doing training programs for companies on preventing sexual harassment. I guess it didn't work. I still do those programs. I did one just yesterday. But I was traveling all over the country, working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and I loved my work. But I was always tired. Do any of you ever feel that way? I know you're too tired to raise your hand, but just nod. Well, my best friend said, and she was a nurse, she said, you should go see a doctor. But, who has time for that? Well, one night I was working late at home, and I collapsed. I was taken to the hospital, and a few days later, the cardiologist diagnosed me with a congenital heart defect, made worse by my stressful lifestyle, lack of exercise, and being overweight by 50 pounds. He said, change your life or you will die. Now, my brothers had moved to Hawaii about 20 years before, and I'd always wanted to live here. So I thought, well, if I'm going to die, I might as well die in Hawaii. And decided to move here. My first week here, my brother said, you should meet the mother of a friend of mine. She's a kupuna, a native Hawaiian elder. The next day I met her, and she immediately hanai'd me, or adopted me, into her family. And a few weeks later, she gave me the name Makana, which means gift, because she said I was a gift to her family. But a few minutes after I met Tutu, she said, are you married? I said, no. She said, I have a son you should meet. And that's how I got the name Chai. He's right outside, so you can meet him if you buy a book. So I tell my single friends who are looking for mates, don't go to a bar. Go to the senior center. And they'll fix you up with their kids. I think she has one that she's trying to get set up. And actually, I was at a law school reunion recently, and I was introducing myself to people, and I was saying, hi, I'm Makana Chai, but in law school, my name was Risser, and one of the lawyers said, are you in the witness protection program? So, ever since the doctor told me to change my life, I've been studying how to change my life. And as I've learned, I've shared it with folks like you so that our whole community can become healthier and happier. And also I share it because I have a tendency to forget. So every time I teach, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to remember to do that. About 2 years ago, I was doing a presentation for bankers here on the island, and it was called Stress Management for Busy People. I was telling them to reduce their stress, they needed to take time to relax, take time to exercise, even take time to meditate. The students started laughing at me. They said, we don't have time. We have jobs. We have families. We commute. Driving home that night, I started thinking, how can I help these folks? And the idea came to me, well, you can meditate while you're driving. Now, don't close your eyes. But meditation, walking meditation, is an ancient tradition because meditation is just breathing and focusing our attention. So we can do that at any time, but especially while we're driving. So that was the seed that gave me the idea of writing my book. 34 things that we can do while we're doing something else so that we don't have the excuse, I don't have any time. So let's go into the first ones. If you turn to page 4 in your materials, you'll see there mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And I'm just going to kind of jump among all 4 of them so you can kind of take all your notes in one place. And the first one I'd like to talk about is related to meditation, which is breathing. Deep breathing, or what the scientists called diaphragmatic breathing, because it engages the diaphragm. The reason that we want to engage the diaphragm when we do deep breathing is because that stimulates the vagus nerve. Now, I know some guys in the back just woke up. Vagus. This one is spelled V-A-G-U-S. And the vagus nerve is where all of our emotional reactions come from, the fight or flight reactions. So if that nerve is stimulated, we're relaxed, we're calm, our digestion is better, our thinking is better, our blood sugar level is better, our heart rate is better, our blood pressure, all of these things are affected by that nerve. So if we can do deep breathing into our stomachs so that we move the diaphragm, then we're stimulating that nerve. And the great thing about this is that we get to let our bellies just hang out. So it's so nice because that's what we want to do anyway, right? For half of it. But the other half is we got to pull our bellies in. So we're pulling the belly in and releasing, pulling and releasing, and we do it with the breath. So when we take in a breath, we're breathing in and breathing into the stomach, and then when we breathe out, we pull the belly in, and then we relax the belly and breathe into the belly, and then pull the belly in and breathe back. So we'll do this together. Let me just say a few more words before we get to that point, but if you want to start practicing, you could do that. So I grew up in California, and of course it's mandatory if you live in California to go to New Age workshops. And I went to all these workshops, and they would tell us to take a deep breath. So I would go, and they'd say, take another deep breath. Take another deep breath. I can't take any more deep breaths. What am I missing? The exhale. And it wasn't until I moved to Hawaii that I realized how important the exhale is, because I learned the Hawaiian word for breath, which is ha. And ha literally means exhale. I realized if I could exhale as much as possible, then my body naturally is going to take in a deep breath, right? So that's what I like to emphasize is the exhale. Now, there's all different kinds of ways of breathing, literally thousands of different breathing exercises that we teach in yoga. But the one we'll do now is breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth so that we can really emphasize that exhale. And I'll walk you through this, but if I'm going too fast or too slow, just do it at your own pace. Don't worry about keeping up with me. So remember, we're going to pull our belly in at the end of the exhale. So just begin by exhaling through the mouth. Really exhale. Keep exhaling. Pull your belly in. And then inhale. And exhale. Really exhale. Pull your belly in at the bottom. Inhale. And exhale. See if you can make it really long this time. Pull your belly in and inhale. And relax. See, your blood pressure just went down. Your blood sugar levels just normalized. And obviously, the more we do it, the more that we get the impact. So this is something you can do while driving. I was talking about meditating while driving, and a guy said, I can't meditate while I'm driving. I'm surrounded by idiots, morons, and wackos. Well, if you think you're surrounded by bad drivers, how are you going to feel? Stressed, right? And when we're stressed, physiologically, what happens is our vision narrows, our hearing decreases, and we don't think as well. So now we're driving like wackos. So by breathing, we can relax and we'll be better drivers as well as feeling better. And maybe this is because I'm from California, but I believe when we're calmer, it actually kind of radiates out to people around us. I could be wrong, but maybe that happens. And then another part of meditating is focusing our attention. So this is a mental exercise. And the mental exercise is don't worry. Don't worry. I was doing a presentation for lawyers recently, and they said, but that's our job. But how often do we worry incessantly, right? Yes, we need to think about things and ponder things, but if we're just idly worrying, it's not good for us. So 2 techniques on stopping worrying. Somebody just the other day said, it's easier said than done to stop worry. So one technique is to eliminate the worry thoughts. A couple ways to do that. How many of you remember the Reverend Dr. Norman Vincent Peale? He wrote the book, The Power of Positive Thinking. He said to imagine that you're flushing the worry thoughts out of your mind. So just picture them, flushing down the drain. I prefer to use a technique I learned from my husband's cousin that he learned from his grandmother. And what she would do anytime there was anything negative going on in the house, she would say, I oki the thing. Oki means cut. And she would go like this with her arm to cut the negative thing so that it would go away. So that's what I do. You might see me walking on the beach, and all of a sudden you'll see me go like this because I want to oki the thoughts. But then we have to replace those worry thoughts, right? Because the mind abhors a vacuum. So we want to replace it. Now, you know the song, Don't Worry. I like to change it a little bit. Don't worry, be grateful. Don't worry, be grateful. If we can replace the worry thoughts with gratefulness thoughts, then we know that we're going to feel better. So I'm sure everyone here is grateful for their families. I'm sure you're grateful for your home I'm sure you're grateful for living in Hawaii. And you're grateful for your health. Even though it's not perfect, it's perfect enough because you're here. What I'd like you to do is to come up with 5 other things that you're grateful for. Talk with your neighbor, it can be 2 or 3 people, and come up with 5 things that you're grateful for. Go. So, what were some of the things that you came up with that you're grateful for? Your blindness.
It opened up, I'm on my 2nd career. It opened up a whole new career field for me and a whole new set of friends.
A whole new career and a whole new set of friends. How wonderful.
And
Thank you.
I should have retired years ago, but I still like my job.
She should have retired years ago, but she still likes her job. Oh, thank you. Anyone else? What you're grateful for?
This course.
Oh,
This course.
Thank you. Thank you. Who else? Friends. What else? Family, children, grandchildren, health. Anyone say pets? Yes. Music. Music, music, music. Wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, wine. Dark chocolate. Perfect. Perfect.
Not what he said.
Oh, it's not?
He said flying. He's a pilot.
Oh, that's what I thought he said, flying. Okay. But how many are grateful for wine? Let's just see a show of hands. Okay. Libraries. I love the library. Yes. Yes. But getting back to wine, you know that red wine is medically indicated, right? That it's a very good thing for us to drink. And dark chocolate is also good. But, you know, it's got to be mostly chocolate, not sugar. You really have to decrease the amount of sugar. But wine and chocolate are perfectly acceptable ways to relax. So, you know, so often I think we think of stress management or how to be healthy as, oh, I got to go to the gym. Oh, I got to do this, you know. No, it's like we get to do this stuff, you know. So if we come to it with that attitude, then it really makes a difference. My mother is 91 and a half years old, and she walks a couple miles a day, swims about a mile a week, square dances, and I just keep hoping that one day I'll be able to keep up with her because she is just amazing. But she's always had that positive mental attitude. She played tennis up until 4 years ago. So, you know, use it or lose it, right? But we can start at any time. I did not start exercising until, really, you know, the doctor, I had my experience when I was 47 with the doctor, and I knew I was supposed to start exercising, but I didn't really start exercising until, I kind of did. I was doing Pilates and yoga, but real exercise, I've only been doing for about 6 years. So as a yoga teacher, the reason I taught yoga and Pilates is because I knew they were good for me, but I didn't really like them that much. So I figured if I taught, I would have to show up. And I taught for 8 years, 4 times a week for 8 years, so it did work. But recently, about 4 years ago, I found exercise for the first time in my life that I like to do. What would you imagine a yoga teacher might like to do? Swim, walk, hike, meditate, boxing. Boxing. I love to box. It is so much fun. Way more stress reducing than meditation. Because you really get to get your stress out. Anyway, so being grateful is a way to reduce worry thoughts and to increase the happy hormones in our body. Now, another way to increase our happy hormones is to smile. Smile. The research shows even fake smiling increases the happy hormones in your body. Your body thinks you're happy. So, I like to smile when I'm cleaning the cat box, when I'm doing any kind of unpleasant thing. Do you ever get emails and just seeing the name on the email stresses you out? Well, something we can do when that happens, she says delete it. You may be able to do that. Maybe a family member, so you kind of have to read it. But what we can do is smile, take a couple deep breaths, and then read the email. And then maybe instead of responding by email, maybe call them. Because our connection, or maybe go see them. Because we deepen our emotional connections when we talk and when we see each other. But smiling. So smiling all the time. So I would like to ask everybody here to smile right now. Give me a nice big smile. And then look at the people on either side of you. And now we're laughing, right? So smiling and laughing are so good for us. And often one leads to the other, right? Now, what do you think would happen if you smiled at everybody that you saw on the street or in the store? How many people think that they would think you're crazy? Well, maybe they would. But my experience is most people smile back, right? What's the song? Smile and the world smiles with you. So I try to smile all the time. And what often happens is that we end up having even more of a connection. I was in the grocery store not long ago, and I had stopped at the end of the aisle, so I was blocking the aisle. And a local man came around the corner. We smiled at each other. And I said, "Oh, let me get out of your way." He said, No, you go." I said, "No, I can't go. I have to think." He said, "Oh, you cannot walk and think at the same time." No. Well, that moment, our lives were enriched. We both laughed. Our lives were enriched. We felt happier. We are healthier as a result of that. And then if he went home and told his family, as I did, told mine, then our families laugh. And then they're healthier and happier. So the more that we can smile and laugh, the better we'll all be. And then if you want to listen or watch less news, may I recommend comedy? There's, YouTube has so much comedy on it. All the classics as well as all the new ones. Who are your favorite comedians? Brian Regan, yeah. Oh, Dave Barry? Yeah, so he's not on YouTube, right? But you read him. Yeah. Yeah, who else? Jeannie Robertson. I love Jeannie Robertson. I know her. Everyone Loves Raymond. My mother loves Three Men. Is that what it's called? The one that Charlie Sheen used to be on? 2.5 men. I was close enough. You can tell I'm a real fan. How about some of the old comedians? Red Skelton. Oh, Bob Hope. Abbott and Costello, Three Stooges, Carol Burnett. Chris Rock. I love Chris Rock. Jonathan Winters, yeah. So, the next time you're thinking, I should turn on the news, how about turning on comedy instead and just laughing? Just laughing. Because laughter is so good for us. Laughter is the best medicine, right? So let's do another technique for laughter. And this is one you can do in the car. In fact, almost everything we've talked about you can do in the car, right? You can stop worrying in the car. You can do gratefulness in the car. You can breathe in the car. Here's another one. Laughter yoga. Laughter yoga. There are groups all over the world practicing laughter yoga together. And I think for this one, we need to stand up. So please stand up, put down your binders. And actually, it's always a good idea whenever we stand up to kind of stretch a little bit. So if you're able, just reach your right arm up and kind of stretch out your whole side. Feel it from the tips of your fingers down to your foot. And then do the other side. And just stretch. Good. And then kind of shake everything out. And roll your shoulders back. This is something you can do in the car or anytime you get up. I just always try to stretch. Okay. So now, laughter yoga, just do what I do. Follow what I do. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Oh. Now look at the person next to you and laugh at them. And give yourself a hand. You just did laughter yoga. And have a seat. So I do this a lot on my way to speaking engagements. I laugh in the car just to lift my spirits and get me going. Now, another thing you can do in the car is sing. Sing. Singing is diaphragmatic breathing. So not only is it fun to do, but it's also stimulating that vagus nerve. So you're getting more relaxed. But I think it's a good idea to only sing positive songs. So who are your favorite artists? Elvis Presley. I'm sure there's some positive ones in there. I can't think of one at the moment, but Blue Hawaii, maybe. John Denver, there's a lot of nice positive songs. Anne Marie. Anyone like the Beatles? Yeah. So I put together a playlist of positive songs, and I sing those when I get in the car so that it reminds me to be positive, and it's getting that diaphragmatic breathing going. So health and wellness is fun, right? Now, let's see. Oh, I did want to mention when we were talking about smiling, another reason to smile all the time as we get older, it kind of lifts everything up. So one of the things I wanted to mention in the spiritual realm, so we talked about meditation, we talked about experiencing awe whenever we're outside. Another thing you can do is guided meditation. Guided meditation. And a guided meditation is where you listen to somebody walk you through a relaxation So this is a nice thing to do when you go to bed, or if you wake up in the middle of the night and find it hard to get back to sleep. You know, the research is showing that one of the most important things we can do to reduce our risk of Alzheimer's is to sleep. Sleep is really important. And you know, there's a lot of kind of myths, let's call them myths. There are these myths that as we get older, we need less sleep, and it's not true. We still need as much sleep as we need. We need 7 or 8 hours. So, if you have difficulty falling asleep, or if you wake up in the middle of the night, using a guided meditation can help you fall asleep. So there are literally thousands of them available online. I have a free one at my website, and it's in your materials of where you can go to get that. It's 12 minutes long. It was created by Dr. Hans Selye, who was the physician who discovered the impact of stress on our health back in the 1930s. And it's been tested on more than 10,000 people. So we know that it works. So that's my gift to you, and I encourage you to download it or have somebody download it for you. I don't know how to download, but I hear it's easy. And use that to help you sleep. So a couple of other thoughts. When you're in the car, instead of listening to news, you can listen to positive podcasts or audiobooks. Does anyone here listen to audiobooks? Good. And you can get those at the library for free. So the idea is to replace that negative information that's coming in with positive information. And then I'd like to share a physical exercise. I mentioned earlier stretching your hamstrings. How many of you have been told by a doctor or noticed that you're losing your height, that you're not as tall as you used to be? And they always say it's osteoporosis or osteopenia or something, and that might be part of it. But what I noticed when I was teaching yoga and Pilates is that a lot of my seniors had tight hamstrings. And what happens when you have tight hamstrings is that you can't straighten your knees. So of course you're shorter. So if we can lengthen our hamstrings, then we'll get our height back, but also it reduces low back pain, and it helps your posture. And you know, posture is so important, right? To give space for all of our internal organs. So stretching our hamstrings, I like to do, and I do it every day when I'm brushing my teeth. So what we do is you kind of hinge at your hips. So you're sticking your rear out, and you see my knees are straight. And the further down I come, I have to come down a little further now because they're pretty stretched. Then you'll feel a stretch from all the way down to below your knee. So when you feel that stretch behind your knee, then you know you're stretching your hamstrings. So you're doing it while you're brushing your teeth. It doesn't take any extra time. And the thing about stretching hamstrings is it's like a rubber band. You know, if you just pull a rubber band as far as you can, it'll break, right? But if every day you just pull it a little bit, then over time it will stretch out. So it's better to do 2 or 4 minutes every day than to try to do 10 minutes at once. So we've covered spiritual, we've covered mental, we've covered physical, and we've covered emotional. Turn to page 9 in your materials, because I need to give you some homework. What we have talked about is tightening your abs, balancing on one foot, doing squats and lunges, relaxing your mind, not worrying, repeating positive affirmations, listening to music, being grateful, experiencing awe, meditating. What I'd like you to do right now is to write down one thing that you're going to try in the next week. When you're going to do it, And who will be your commitment partner? Now, if you're here with your partner or spouse, that can be your commitment partner. If you are not here with somebody, turn to the person next to you and tell them what you're going to do. And next week, go find that person and see if you've kept your commitment. Well, I know that Virginia wants you to have an opportunity to ask questions. So, any questions or comments that you folks have before we finish up? Well, maybe if there's no other questions, if I could just finish up with one quick story. The last technique in the book, and we didn't cover all of them by any means. The last technique in the book is called listen and watch for answers. And this one's not supported by medical science. I think often we pray or hope or wish for something, but then we're so busy, we don't hear the answers. When the doctor told me to change my life, I did not immediately decide to move to Hawaii. I'm a lawyer, so I have to analyze it. I'm writing down all the things I could possibly do and the pros and cons of each one, and I was driving myself crazy trying to decide how I could change my life. So I decided to go on retreat at a Native American retreat center where I'd been going for many years. And the first night we had dinner, I went to sleep, and the next morning I woke up before anybody else, and it was a beautiful dawn. I walked out to a point and watched the sun rise, breathed in the smell of the pine trees, and at that point there was something, a circle of rocks that the teachers called the ancestor circle. And the students over the years had placed rocks there to commemorate their loved ones who had passed. I was just idly looking at the rocks, wondering if I could identify the rock I had placed there for my father, who had died many years before. And all of a sudden, I realized that that day was the anniversary of his death. And that when he died, he was 8 years older than I was at that point. I thought, if I knew I had 8 years to live, what would I do? And the answer came, move to Hawaii. Now, I don't know if the voice was the voice of my father, the voice of God, or that internal voice of wisdom that we all have. But clearly it was the right advice, because I moved here, met my husband, and I'm here with you right now. So I encourage you to relax, slow down, be silent, listen, and look for answers to guide your life. Thank you all.